At one point in your life, your mission was to go to war. Mine was to save the injured. Others transported supplies, some did the admiral's paperwork. Each of these tasks were service to the country we swore to protect. We didn't ask conditions. We signed on the line for whatever service would bring. My service as a hospital corpsman ended in 2000. Now your time in service is ending or over. What are you doing? How are you helping yourself and the world at large? This episode focuses on how military veterans can leverage their inherent sense of ownership to take charge of their civilian careers, health, and overall well-being after service. But first, let's reiterate our why for listening to the 7 Pillars podcast. You're here because you know something needs to shift. You've tried willpower, you've set goals, but what you need now is a system, and that's what we're building, one pillar at a time. This is the 7 Pillars podcast. I'm Kevin Pinnell. Let's get to work. Veterans who proactively engage in career planning report 15% higher job satisfaction in post-service employment. That's a statistic from the Journal of Vocational Behavior. And I wanted to share that because we all know when we put the work in, we're more prepared. We're just better at whatever we do. And that means coming out of service, out of the military, into the civilian world. So now we're going to get into how to own your skill transition, how to own your health and wellness, how to own your community integration, and your financial future. So skill transition. And I did this more from, I actually completely changed from being a hospital corpsman, critically care trained, doing advanced cardiac life support, event standbys, these kind of things, to information technology because I didn't want to get blood and guts on me anymore. I didn't want to be on call, do standby, that kind of stuff. And I would wax and wane on that and cycle through those kind of jobs through my career. But I got IT certifications, which we'll touch on here in a second, and completely changed my world. So to me, my first tip on owning your skill translation is unless you're transitioning to a civilian job where you're still going to kick indoors, handle ordnance, or apply tourniquets on a regular basis, you need to learn how to take the skills you learned in the military and get credit for them and then apply them in civilian life, right? So to me, what I found helpful, and then again later on when I got my project management professional, is to make a comprehensive inventory of the military's skills and experiences and identify their civilian equivalents, right? It can be on a document or a spreadsheet. I'm all about spreadsheets. I'm a project manager, program manager, and those are super helpful. So one, I would create a column for military skill. Then I would create another column for civilian equivalent. And then another column for, is this a realistic application? You can put an X, a yes, or whatever. And don't BS yourself, right? Nor your potential future hiring manager. If you're not sure, talk to folks that are in the civilian world and get some perspective. You can reach out to me on the contact form at peopleprocessprogress.com. But you need to really know, is this skill I did in the Marines equivalent to the civilian skill that someone said? And this next tool I'm going to talk about, there's a military skills translator on the military.com website, which is pretty neat. It's really more what job did you do and what service, and then it shows jobs that you could apply for, right? Based on a match of what the military, the MOS was with what the civilian job is. But I really think you should do the spreadsheet first on your own. You should deep dive into all the things you've done. We get training records, we get all that info, and then do the match, right? And sorry, Space Force, you are not listed on the website. The second tip is before you get out, get those certifications that you didn't get while you were in. So as a hospital corpsman, I worked at the level of like a physician assistant, right? I did advanced cardiac life support. I was a critical care corpsman. I worked in an ICU. I did things that critical care nurses do, but that didn't translate to just going and saying, hey, I want to be a nurse. And then they give me, right, my registered nurse, or I challenge the test or anything. So I would have had to, and I did, do the EMT test, but also the paramedic. Now, if you're a high-speed, you're a pararescue guy, or you're an amphibious reconnaissance corpsman, or some other special operations corpsman or high-level thing, or you decided, hey, I'm going to go to paramedic school and you get it, awesome. And if that's what you want to do, if not, before you get out, look for that. And for those schools, particularly paramedic, that's a long one. EMT, much shorter. But get that certification because it directly translates. It's a national certification, right? Or you can get the national one, but it's state by state and then national. Unfortunately, you just don't get straight credit for challenging, but talk to your state emergency medical office, and that's for corpsmen in particular, but there's equivalents, right? Particularly if you're a law enforcement in the military. I'm sure it's a whole different world. How does that translate? But find how you can get credit, and if you have to get a certification, let the military pay for it before you get out, then you're already set up. So own that skill translation. The second thing is health and wellness, right? Generally, and I know this doesn't apply because not everybody maxes out their PT scores, right? Is that you should be, when you're in the military, on a regular workout structure. You're in shape. You can do things. And I know there's folks that are really out of shape. And I know there's folks that are in amazing shape. And not just in the special units, but everywhere. Right? So assuming you're a hard charger, keep that standard up. Right? Because it's also going to play, that's why it's pillar 3 for me, right? On your mental health. By keeping working out regularly, going to the doctor, getting dentist, getting checked out. Now, the difference is there's no sick call. So, doc, I'm not hanging out with Motrin and water and fresh socks and Sudafed for your boo-boos. You're going to have those included now in your new, and I'll talk about this in the financial section, in your new job. But you need to keep it up, particularly the working out. The second for your overall wellness is the mental health thing, right? And don't go it alone. And if you're a vet or you've paid attention to the veteran community in the last 20-some years, you've heard of the 22 a day, right? Which means 22 veterans kill themselves every day. As of last year, the number's lower to 17, but 1 is too many. Don't become one of the 17. Don't hold all that shit you saw in your head. I did, and combined with all the other stuff that life brought me after service, being midlife, all the things, right? Seeing other stuff in public safety, being part of a hot air balloon accident, right? It earned me a free trip to the ER for a panic attack, months of anxious living, horrible sleep, regret, and it's just not worth it, right? There is time. These 7 pillars work, and please dive into them for yourself and those around you that care about you. The third area I want to talk about is owning your community integration. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, as of last year in 2024, there's 17.6 million Americans who are military veterans, which is about, and this is weird, 7% of the civilian non-institutional population, 18 and over. So if you do the straight math, it doesn't match up. But I guess if you're in an institution, it doesn't count. So anyway, so let's say 7%, right? So out of 100 people in the company, that's 7 that could be veterans. Now, I get it. That's straight numbers. Where I work, there's actually a lot of veterans. I feel like that ratio is higher as far as there's more vets, but it depends on the hiring practice, which a lot of places prefer veterans. There's veterans preference hiring, right? But we can't expect to connect with our new coworkers like we did with those we served with, fought with, visited in foreign lands. That's all right, though. We just have to accept it, just like you embrace the suck wherever you served, whenever you served, and relish the fact that what's a catastrophe to so many people that never served, that have never been in hard situations, is no bigs to you, right? And there's huge value in that. So hold on to that, because as you lead at whatever level and as you become a higher level leader, that's going to work out really good for you. The second thing about your community integration is here is really where more ownership comes in, right? You're going to build new relationships, and that's up to you, right? Sitting in the corner as grumpy veteran may work for a while, but it's not awesome. And you really want to establish a new platoon of coworkers, we'll say. Now, not in the way you did maybe as part of the E4 Mafia. This new world you're in does value decisiveness, but we can't make team members go mop the deck outside in the rain, right? What we can do is break bread, share our backgrounds, and seek to connect with them with positive intent, right? If we hold that chip like you didn't do this, you didn't do that, well, they don't owe you anything just because you signed online and they didn't, right? So that's all on you. The third tip is seek veterans groups, right? Sometimes we just want to connect with people like us. We can let it go. We can have the bullshit banner, the unfiltered jokes, right? And so every time I've connected with or reconnected with fellow veterans, I've had a great time. One of my best friends is a Marine veteran. I was a corpsman. We never served together, and we chop it up like crazy. And anytime I get together with the folks I served with or that I know served, it's just automatic connection. It's amazing. So I really appreciated that. So if you really want to have that connection, look up your American Legion, Veteran of Foreign Wars, and vets. And, you know, there's certain things that veterans go to. Like I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's quite a few vets involved there, or at least a handful. And you can tell, right? And you connect right away. And it's really awesome. The third thing is financial future, right? You got to own that. So gone or soon to be gone are the, as they say, like 3 hots in a cot, right? Old school, that steady.gov paycheck, the hazard pay, the BAS, the BAH, and more. Now you have to earn your salary. You got to pay those taxes. You got to pick your health plan, which is going to reduce your paycheck, right? And more. And it's not a totally different world, but the more you set yourself up ahead of time, the less you'll need to survive on toasted English muffins and peanut butter as you rebuild your savings, which I'll tell you is not fun. The second thing is use that transition assistance program, right, for what it is. Some are better than others. Depends on who delivers it, where they deliver it, how into it they are, how burnt out the person. Like you guys get it. So I would say focus on the core concepts, then create a plan that works for you and what you want to do, and then implement it and plan your transition, right? So think about those skills I talked about mapping earlier in the episode and really think about what's practical, right? Slicing the pie is good if you're going to be on a SWAT team, It doesn't matter if you're checking corners if you got to make a Gantt chart for a project, right? So just be practical. So what did we talk about? We talked about transitioning military skills, right? It's paramount. You gotta equate what you used to do with what you're gonna do in the future, right? My ability to drain cerebrospinal fluid from a person whose ventricles are getting collapsed because of brain trauma is not helpful when I'm trying to troubleshoot a computer or help a project get unstuck, right? Now, the troubleshooting mantra of triaging what's most important, super applicable. So that applies the concept of, can I be decisive? Just like I mentioned earlier, like you can, right, in a tough spot, that translates as well. So not just the hard skills, like what technically can I do, but also how have I dealt with people? How have I led them? How have I followed them? How have I been part of a team? We've also maintaining health and wellness, right? That means your mind, your body, and your spirit, right? Those are all pillars here in the 7 Pillars podcast. Community integration, right? You got to realize you're different than other folks, and that's great, and it's amazing, and people celebrate that. And this year we're in an era of people celebrating that more, but also that you are different. And sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes people make a thing of it, like, I'm a veteran, like too much. Like, cool, that's awesome. We shouldn't bring the ego just because we served, right? Financial security, right? That's a huge thing, especially when you get out, because when you're in the military, you're taken care of, right? Whether you live on base or not, you get a supplement, you live off base, whatever, you know your check's coming. And when you get into a job and you're doing a good job, you also kind of know your check's coming, but it's a bit different. So ultimately, what I hope to provide is to underscore the inherent sense of ownership that is ingrained in military service and how much of an asset that is, right? And veterans can leverage, and how we as veterans can build successful and meaningful lives after our time in uniform. So the call to action as you hear this is start with that skills inventory. I think that's the quickest, most practical thing. The other stuff, integrating financial, also pretty straightforward, but you can look at what are the things I did. You have your training record, include those in there. What's the civilian equivalent? Or if you don't know, Google it. Like, what's equal to this skill? It's pretty helpful. Use AI, whatever, and start that, because that'll start to develop a map for where you want to go. If you already know, awesome. If you don't, it can help you get there. Right? And your service has prepared you for a lot, whether you think you did something tactical or not. You've made a difference. And just because you're not wearing camis or whatever uniform, you're still going to get after it and make a difference in this world. Thanks for listening to the 7 Pillars podcast. If today's episode gave you something to think about or act on, consider sharing it with someone else walking their own path. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. You can connect with me and follow on X and Instagram at PanelKG, PANNELKG. I'm also on LinkedIn. In the meantime, own your mind, move your body, anchor your spirit, and I'll see you next time. Godspeed, y'all.